The emergency beacon screamed across every frequency humanity possessed. Captain Jake Morrison gripped the armrest of his command chair as the distress signal tore through the bridge speakers of the Earth defense ship Defender. His crew froze, every face turning pale as the message repeated in a loop. Colony 7, home to 3 million civilians, had gone silent. No response. No transmissions. Just the automated beacon, designed to activate only when life support failed catastrophically. "Get me visual confirmation now," Jake barked at his communications officer, Lieutenant Kate Phillips. Her hands flew across the console, but the shake in her fingers betrayed her fear. The holographic display flickered to life above the command table, and what appeared made Jake's blood run cold. Colony 7 floated in pieces. Debris fields stretched for thousands of kilometers. Hull fragments, personal belongings, bodies frozen in the void. 3 million people, gone in what appeared to be a coordinated strike. "Sir, I'm detecting energy signatures consistent with Zalthor weaponry," reported his tactical officer, Commander Ben Hughes. The name sent a ripple of anger through the bridge crew. The Zalthor Collective had been humanity's supposed allies for the past decade, ever since Earth had been granted probationary membership in the Galactic Council. The Alliance had brought advanced technology, trade routes, and promises of mutual defense. Now those promises lay shattered among the ruins of Colony 7. Jake opened a channel to Earth Command. Admiral Lisa Grant's face appeared on screen, her expression already grave. She knew. "Captain Morrison, you're seeing what we're seeing. Colony 7 was hit 4 hours ago. We've lost contact with Outpost Frontier and Settlement Nova as well. Initial reports suggest simultaneous attacks." Her voice remained steady, but Jake could hear the fury beneath it. "The Galactic Council has issued a statement calling it an unfortunate incident requiring investigation. They're asking us to stand down while they review the matter." "Stand down!" Jake couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. "Admiral, that's 3 settlements. Nearly 5 million people. And they want us to wait for a committee?" Lisa's eyes hardened. "The Council believes this is a measured response. Apparently, the Zalthor claim we violated some obscure trade regulation. They're calling the attacks proportional enforcement." She leaned closer to the camera. "Captain, I'm about to recall every Earth vessel to home system. What I'm telling you now is off the record. President Harris is addressing the nation in 2 hours. We're done playing by their rules." The transmission ended, and Jake stood from his chair. His crew watched him, waiting for orders that would change everything. For 10 years, humanity had bent over backward to please the Galactic Council, had followed every regulation, accepted every slight, swallowed every insult. The Council's species looked at humans as primitives, barely worthy of acknowledgement. They had demanded Earth limit its fleet, restrict its weapons development, and accept oversight on every colonial expansion. Humanity had complied, desperate for a place among the stars. That compliance had just been repaid with genocide. "Lieutenant Phillips, recall all reconnaissance drones. Commander Hughes, bring weapons systems online, all of them." Jake's voice carried a new edge, one his crew had never heard before. "Navigation, set course for Earth. Maximum speed." As the Defender's engines roared to life, Jake stared at the ruins of Colony 7 on the view screen. The Galactic Council had made a fatal miscalculation. They had mistaken humanity's patience for weakness, its diplomacy for cowardice. They had forgotten to ask why a species that clawed its way from caves to spacecraft in mere millennia had been so eager to follow rules. The answer was simple. Humanity had been waiting, learning, preparing, and now, with the blood of millions crying out for justice, Earth was about to remind the galaxy what happened when you pushed a predator species too far. The stars themselves would shake with what was coming. President Karen Harris stood before the assembled press corps, her face illuminated by hundreds of camera lights. Behind her, the flags of Earth's United Nations hung in solemn silence. She had dismissed her speechwriters an hour ago, choosing instead to speak from the heart. The teleprompt remained blank. What she was about to say needed no script. "My fellow humans, by now you have heard the reports from our colonies. The deaths of nearly 5 million of our brothers and sisters was not an accident. It was not a tragedy. It was murder, sanctioned by those who claim to represent civilization among the stars." She paused, letting the weight of those words settle across every broadcast receiver on Earth and its remaining colonies. "The Galactic Council has informed us that these attacks were lawful under their codes, that our people died because we allegedly violated regulations we were never properly informed of. They have requested we submit to their investigation process, which their own records show takes an average of 47 years to complete. A murmur ran through the press corps. Karen raised her hand for silence. I have consulted with our military leadership, our scientific community, and our allied nations. The decision I announce today is unanimous. As of this moment, Earth is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. We reject their authority, their laws, and their false promises of protection. Furthermore, I am authorizing the immediate activation of Project Warhammer. The name meant nothing to the public, but intelligence agencies across a dozen alien species sat up in alarm. Their spy networks had heard whispers of Warhammer for years, but had dismissed it as paranoid military planning. The Galactic Council had been so certain of humanity's compliance that they had ignored the signs. They were about to learn the cost of that arrogance. Karen continued, her voice growing stronger. For 10 years we have accepted limits on our fleet size, on our weapons capabilities, on our very right to defend ourselves. The Council believed this made us safe to integrate. They were wrong. Those restrictions made their job easier, nothing more. What they failed to understand is that humanity has never needed permission to protect its own. Across Earth's solar system, massive structures that had been classified as mining stations began to transform. Hull plating retracted, revealing weapon batteries that dwarfed anything the Council knew humanity possessed. Shipyards that supposedly produced civilian transport vessels opened their true bays, and warships began to emerge. Not the small patrol craft Earth had been permitted, but massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons technology that married human ingenuity with reverse-engineered alien systems. Admiral Lisa Grant watched from the bridge of the Earth warship Vengeance as her fleet assembled. 200 capital ships, each one built in secret over the past decade. Thousands of fighters and support craft. And the crown jewel, the massive carrier Retribution. A vessel so large it had been constructed inside a hollowed asteroid to hide it from Council surveillance satellites. The ship's artificial intelligence core came online, its processors running calculations for what was about to become the largest military operation in human history. Admiral, we're receiving deployment orders from Earth Command, reported her executive officer, Commander Ryan Foster. Target packages are coming through now. Looks like we're hitting 17 Zalthor military installations simultaneously. Lisa studied the tactical display. The targets were spread across 3 star systems, each one a strategic choke point in Zalthor territory. Taking them would cripple the collective's ability to project force and send a clear message to the rest of the galaxy. But it was the 18th target that made her smile grimly. Council Station Harmony, the massive diplomatic hub where the Galactic Council held its sessions. Humanity wouldn't destroy it, but they would certainly make it clear that they could have. Execute the deployment order. All ships are weapons-free once we reach target zones. Rules of engagement are simple. She looked around her bridge crew, seeing her own determination reflected in their faces. Any ship that fires on us gets erased. Any installation that shows hostile intent gets leveled. We are not here for conquest. We are here to make them remember that Earth protects its own. The fleet entered hyperspace in perfect formation, leaving Earth's solar system for the first time as a true military force. In their wake, defense platforms activated around every human world, particle cannons that could crack a moon, rail guns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds, and experimental weapons that Council physicists had declared impossible. Humanity had spent 10 years smiling and nodding while building an arsenal that would make gods nervous. On 17 worlds across Zalthor space, military commanders received impossible sensor readings. Human ships, dozens of them, dropping out of hyperspace in perfect attack formations. The commanders sent urgent requests to Council Station Harmony, demanding to know why they hadn't been warned. The response they received was silence. The Council was an emergency session, their chambers in chaos as they realized the scope of their mistake. The Zalthor commander of Defense Station Talon watched in disbelief as human fighters swarmed his installation's gun emplacements. His shield, supposedly impervious to primitive Earth weapons, flickered and died under sustained fire from weapons that shouldn't exist. He opened a channel to the lead human vessel, hoping to negotiate a surrender. Commander Sarah Blake's face appeared on his screen, her expression cold and merciless. Defense Station Talon, you have 30 seconds to evacuate your personnel. After that, we're cracking this installation open like an egg. You wanted to show us the price of violating Council law. Let me show you the price of murdering our civilians. The Zalthor commander began the evacuation procedures, his hands shaking. As his people fled to escape pods, he watched the human warships take up firing positions. The weapons they brought to bear were unlike anything in the Council's databases. Humanity had taken the technology they'd been given and improved on it, weaponized it, turned it into instruments of devastating precision. The attack on Defense Station Talon lasted 4 minutes. When it ended, the installation was debris, carefully fragmented to ensure no piece was large enough to threaten nearby shipping lanes. Sarah marked the target as complete and moved to her next objective. Across Zelthor space, similar scenes played out as Earth's rage manifested in coordinated strikes that were impossible to defend against. On Council Station Harmony, Ambassador Vex of the Zelthor Collective stood before the assembled council, his scaled features twisted in fury. The humans must be stopped immediately. This is an act of war against not just my people, but against the Council itself. I demand immediate military intervention. Council Chairman Thoris, a being of pure energy, contained in a crystalline matrix pulsed with uncertainty. The humans have withdrawn from our jurisdiction. Technically, they are no longer bound by our laws, and their military capabilities appear to have been severely underestimated. Underestimated? Vex's voice rose to a screech. They were supposed to have 12 patrol cruisers and a handful of outdated fighters. Our intelligence confirmed this repeatedly. How do they suddenly field a fleet that rivals our own? The answer came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Chen Wei, one of Earth's diplomatic staff who had remained behind to formally process the withdrawal paperwork, stepped forward. Her smile was thin and cold. You confirmed what we wanted you to confirm, Ambassador Vex. For 10 years, while your people and others on this council looked down on humanity as backwards and primitive, we built, we learned, we prepared. You see, there's something you need to understand about humans. We've spent our entire evolutionary history as both predator and prey. We know what it means to be hunted, and we know what it takes to hunt. She activated a holographic display showing the ongoing strikes against Zelthor positions. Right now, 17 of your military installations are being reduced to scrap metal. Not because we want conquest, not because we seek dominion, but because you took our people's lives and expected us to accept it. You mistook our desire for peace as an ability to wage war. That was your first and final mistake. Thoris pulsed brightly. Ambassador Chen, surely Earth understands that this escalation will result in collective council action. We have fleets that number in the thousands, technologies that span millennia. You cannot hope to prevail against united opposition. Chen's smile never wavered. Chairman, with all due respect, you're assuming we want to fight all of you. We don't. Our quarrel is with those who attacked our colonies and those who sanctioned it. But make no mistake. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. If the Council decides to unite against Earth, you will discover exactly how dangerous a cornered predator can be. We didn't survive ice ages, plagues, world wars, and nuclear brinksmanship by backing down when threatened. We survived by being more stubborn, more vicious, and more willing to pay terrible prices than our enemies. The council chamber fell silent as her words echoed through translation matrices. Species who had dismissed humanity for a decade suddenly saw them in a new light. The small, pink-skinned bipeds who had seemed so eager to please were revealing teeth that had been hidden behind diplomatic smiles, and those teeth were very, very sharp. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Admiral Grant watched as the last of her target objectives fell, 17 military installations destroyed with 0 human casualties. The Zelthor fleet was in disarray, their command and control infrastructure shattered. It was time for the next phase. Communications. Open a channel to Council Station Harmony. Wide broadcast to all frequencies. I want every species in the galaxy to hear this. The channel opened and Lisa stood tall, her uniform crisp despite hours of combat operations. This is Admiral Lisa Grant of the Earth Defense Fleet. To the Galactic Council and all member species, hear these words. Earth has demonstrated its capability and its resolve. The attacks on our colonies have been avenged. The Zelthor military threat has been neutralized. We take no pleasure in the destruction we have wrought, but we will not apologize for it. She paused, letting that sink in across 1,000 worlds. To the Zelthor Collective specifically, know this. You have 48 hours to surrender those responsible for ordering the attacks on our colonies. They will face trial under human law for crimes against humanity. If you refuse, we will come and take them. Your shields won't stop us. Your fleets won't slow us. And your council membership won't protect you. Vex began sputtering objections, but Lisa cut him off. To the Galactic Council, we offer this choice. Acknowledge our right to exist as a sovereign power, free from your oversight and restrictions, or learn firsthand why Earth conquered its own world before reaching for the stars. We are not your subjects. We are not your inferiors. We are humanity, and we have had enough. The transmission ended, and Lisa allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Earth had thrown down the gauntlet, and the galaxy would have to respond. But humanity had learned hard lessons throughout its bloody history, the most important being that respect couldn't be asked for or negotiated. It had to be taken, paid for in the currency of strength and unwavering will. The Galactic Council was about to receive an education in human nature, one they would never forget. The 48-hour deadline approached with agonizing slowness. On Earth, citizens watched news feeds with mixture of pride and fear. They had been attacked, and their military had responded with devastating efficiency. But now came the uncertainty. Would the Zalthor surrender the war criminals? Would the Council intervene? And if they did, could humanity truly stand against species that had mastered space travel while humans were still painting caves? In the war room beneath Geneva, President Harris met with her military chiefs and top scientists. The holographic display showed the current positions of Earth's fleet and the movements of potential hostile forces. So far, the Council species seemed to be adopting a wait-and-see approach. Only the Zalthor were mobilizing, and even they appeared confused about how to proceed. "Madam President, we're detecting unusual activity in the Zalthor home system," reported General Marcus Stone, head of Earth's Strategic Defense Initiative. "Multiple civilian transports are leaving orbit, heading toward neutral space. Could be evacuations." Harris studied the data streams. "Or they're trying to smuggle out the individuals we've demanded." "Sarah, what's the status of our interdiction forces?" Admiral Blake, promoted to command of the Rapid Response Group, nodded from her position at the tactical table. "We have 3 hunter groups positioned along all major exit routes from Zalthor Prime. If anyone tries to run, we'll catch them. Sir, permission to speak freely? Granted. The Zalthor are testing us. They're sending those transports to see if we'll actually fire on civilian vessels. It's a no-win scenario. If we let them pass, we look weak. If we stop them, they'll claim we're targeting innocents." Harris considered this. "Then we split the difference. Intercept every vessel leaving Zalthor space. Board them if necessary. Any ship that resists gets disabled, not destroyed. Crews get detained and returned unharmed after we've confirmed passenger manifests. We show strength without becoming the monsters they want to paint us as." As the order went out, humanity's forces began the delicate operation of interdicting an entire star system. It was unprecedented in galactic history. Never had a single species attempted to blockade another without Council authorization. The audacity of it sent shockwaves through diplomatic channels. On Council Station Harmony, the emergency session had been ongoing for 30 hours straight. Species representatives who normally spent their time in comfortable offices now found themselves forced to confront a reality that threatened the very foundation of galactic order. If humanity could defy the Council with impunity, what prevented others from doing the same? Chairman Thoris attempted to maintain order as voices overlapped in a dozen languages. "Please, honored delegates, we must approach this systematically. The humans have legitimate grievances. The deaths of 5 million beings cannot be dismissed as routine enforcement." Ambassador Vex slammed his appendage against his podium. "They were colonizing worlds without proper authorization, extracting resources without paying council tariffs. The response was appropriate under Code 7-3-9. Code 7-3-9 allows for economic sanctions and fleet restrictions," countered Ambassador Krell of the Vortan Union. "Not the systematic destruction of civilian populations. Vex, your people committed genocide and hid behind bureaucratic language. Now you're facing consequences and crying foul." The argument might have continued indefinitely if not for the sudden arrival of a new transmission. Every screen in the council chamber flickered, displaying the image of a human woman in civilian clothes. Dr. Patricia Hayes, Earth's leading xenobiologist and one of the few humans who had earned genuine respect from the scientific community, looked tired but determined. "Honored council members, forgive this intrusion. I am broadcasting from Colony 8, one of the settlements that survived the Zalthor attacks. I wanted to show you something before you make your decision on how to proceed." The camera panned away from Patricia to show a medical facility. Rows of beds filled with injured humans, many missing limbs, covered in burns, or simply staring at nothing with trauma-shocked eyes. These are the survivors our rescue teams pulled from Colony 7's debris field. 4,000 people out of 3 million. The Zalthor ships didn't just destroy our stations. They hunted escape pods. They targeted medical vessels clearly marked with non-combatant identifiers. This wasn't enforcement of regulations. This was extermination. She walked through the ward, stopping at a bed where a young girl lay sleeping, her small body encased in medical nanogel. This is Amy. She's 6 years old. She watched her parents die when Zalthor fighters strafed their evacuation shuttle. She survived because her mother used her own body as a shield. Amy asked me this morning when the bad aliens would come back. I told her they wouldn't, that Earth's soldiers would protect her. Please don't make me a liar. The transmission ended and silence fell over the council chamber. Even Vex seemed diminished, unable to meet the eyes of his fellow delegates. Patricia's broadcast had done what no military demonstration could. It had made the victims real, had put a face to the statistics. 5 million dead wasn't an abstract number anymore. It was Amy and thousands like her, children who would never see their parents again. Ambassador Chen Wei rose from her seat. The deadline expires in 4 hours. Earth has made its position clear. We want justice for our people. Not revenge, not conquest, just simple justice. The Galactic Council can either support that or stand in our way. Choose wisely, because humanity will not be stopped by committee votes or legal precedents written by those who consider us beneath contempt. As the deadline ticked down, the Zalthor government found itself facing internal rebellion. On Zalthor Prime, protests erupted as civilians learned the full truth of what their military had done. The official narrative of justified enforcement crumbled under the weight of evidence, much of it leaked by Zalthor citizens horrified by their leadership's actions. The collective consciousness that governed their species fractured along ideological lines. Fleet Commander Zix, one of the Zalthor military leaders who had argued against the colony attacks, made a decision that would alter the course of history. He contacted Admiral Grant directly, offering to surrender not just the individuals who ordered the strikes, but full access to Zalthor military records and communication logs. The price he asked was simple: asylum for his family and protection from his own government's retaliation. Lisa listened to his proposal, her tactical officers running background checks and threat assessments in real time. Commander Zix, why should we trust you? You're part of the same military that murdered millions of our people. Zix's holographic image flickered with what the translation software indicated was shame. Because I have a daughter too, Admiral. Her name translates roughly to bright star in your language. When I saw the human child in Dr. Hayes' broadcast, I saw my own offspring. What my people did was not enforcement. It was evil. I will not let that stain remain on my family's honor. The transmission included encrypted files, terabytes of data that Earth's cyber warfare teams immediately began analyzing. Within minutes, they confirmed it was legitimate. Orders, communications, even internal debates among Zalthor leadership about whether the attacks would provoke human retaliation. The smoking gun evidence was all there. Harris received the report with grim satisfaction. Grant Zix asylum. Get him and his family to neutral space under heavy escort. And Admiral Grant, prepare to address the Galactic Council. It's time to end this. The council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from species that hadn't attended sessions in decades materialized or teleported in, drawn by the historic nature of what was unfolding. When Admiral Grant appeared on the central display, flanked by images of the evidence provided by Commander Zix, the chamber fell silent. Honored delegates, for 48 hours Earth has demonstrated its military capabilities. We have shown that humanity will not be victims again. But we have also shown restraint. Despite our anger, despite our grief, we have not struck civilian targets. We have not engaged in the same tactics used against our colonies. Why? Because we are better than that. She activated the evidence files, projecting them for all to see. These are the orders authorizing the colony attacks. These are the communications between Zalthor military leadership. You will see they knew exactly what they were doing. They targeted civilian populations deliberately, hoping to terrorize Earth into complete submission. They believed we would beg for mercy, would accept any terms to make the killing stop. The documents scrolled across every screen, damning in their clarity. Vex tried to interrupt, but his microphone was muted by Chairman Thoris. The energy being pulsed was something that might have been anger. Let the Admiral finish. They were wrong, Lisa continued. Humanity doesn't beg. We fight. We adapt. We overcome. For 10 years, we accepted limits on our sovereignty because we hoped cooperation would be enough. But some beings only understand strength. The Zalthor leadership understood the language of violence, so we spoke it fluently. Now we're offering a different conversation. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. Earth proposes the following. The individuals responsible for ordering the colony attacks will face trial in an international court, one that includes both human and council species judges. The Zelthor Collective will pay reparations for the destruction of our colonies. Not in credits, but in technology transfers and resources to rebuild. And finally, the Galactic Council will acknowledge Earth as a sovereign power with full rights to self-defense and military development, free from arbitrary restrictions. Chairman Thoris pulsed thoughtfully. And if the Council refuses these terms? Lisa's smile was cold. Then Earth remains outside the Council framework and we continue to expand and develop without oversight. We will defend our interests as we see fit, and the Council will have no say in how we do so. Frankly, Mr. Chairman, we'd prefer to work within the system. But we've proven we don't need your permission to exist, to grow, or to protect our own. The choice of cooperation or confrontation is yours. The Council erupted in debate, but the outcome was already clear to anyone paying attention. Humanity had demonstrated both the capability and willingness to stand alone. More importantly, they had exposed the rot within the Council's enforcement systems, shown how easily regulations could be weaponized by those with malicious intent. Reform was coming whether the old guard wanted it or not. Over the next 72 hours, the galaxy watched as the old order crumbled. The Zalthor government collapsed in a bloodless coup as reformist factions seized control. Those responsible for the colony attacks were arrested and turned over to Earth custody. The Galactic Council, facing the worst crisis in its 10,000-year history, voted to accept humanity's terms with only 3 dissenting voices. But the real changes went deeper. Species that had chafed under Council restrictions for centuries saw what Earth had accomplished and began asking uncomfortable questions. Why did the Council need to limit anyone's military capabilities? Who decided what was proportional enforcement? And most dangerously, what would happen if others decided to follow humanity's example? On Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the Council's capitulation spread. The military operation had achieved every objective with minimal casualties. The perpetrators would face justice. The colonies would be rebuilt. But President Harris stood on the White House balcony watching fireworks light up the sky and felt a weight settle on her shoulders. "We've changed everything," she said quietly to Admiral Grant, who had returned to Earth for the formal treaty signing. "The galaxy will never be the same." Lisa nodded, her eyes scanning the celebrating crowds below. "No, it won't. We proved that the Council's authority rests on consent, not inevitability. Other species will test those boundaries now. Some will succeed, others will fail. It's going to be chaotic. Do you think we made the right choice? Going to war instead of pursuing diplomatic channels?" The Admiral considered the question carefully. "Madam President, diplomacy only works when all parties negotiate in good faith. The Zalthor proved they weren't interested in good faith when they vaporized 3 million of our people. Sometimes the only way to save lives in the long run is to show you're willing to fight in the short term. Yes, I think we made the right choice. We showed the galaxy that humanity won't be victims. That message will save countless lives in the future." 3 months later, the trial of the Zalthor war criminals began in a specially constructed court on neutral ground. Human judges sat alongside Council species jurists, presiding over proceedings that were broadcast across the galaxy. The evidence was overwhelming, the guilty verdicts inevitable. But what mattered most was the precedent being set. No longer could military actions hide behind bureaucratic justifications. Genocide was genocide, regardless of what regulations claimed to authorize it. Commander Zix testified against his former superiors, his testimony devastating in its detail. He had been granted asylum on one of Earth's outer colonies, where he and his family were learning to integrate into human society. His daughter, Brightstar, had become friends with Amy, the young survivor from Colony 7. The image of the 2 children playing together became a symbol of hope, proof that even after terrible violence, reconciliation was possible. Earth's fleet returned home in triumph, but Admiral Grant insisted on one final mission. The Vengeance and a small escort group traveled to the ruins of Colony 7. There, in the silence of space, they constructed a memorial, a massive structure of crystal and steel that would orbit the dead colony forever, bearing the names of every person who had died. It would serve as a reminder of the cost of arrogance and the price of freedom. At the dedication ceremony, Grant addressed her crew and the thousands watching via broadcast. "We came to the star seeking a better future. We found wonder and horror in equal measure. These names represent our innocence lost, the moment humanity learned that the universe doesn't care about fairness or justice. Those things only exist when people are willing to fight for them. We fought. We won. And now we remember, so that we never forget why we fight." Back on Council Station Harmony, the Reformed Council held its first session under new operating protocols. Human representatives now sat as full members, their voices equal to species that had traveled the stars for millennia. Ambassador Chen Wei proposed a series of reforms to the Council's enforcement codes, measures designed to prevent the kind of atrocity that had sparked the war. The proposals faced resistance from conservative factions, but the memory of Earth's warships jumping into Zalthor space was still fresh. The reforms passed. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity wasn't special because of unique technology or innate superiority. They were dangerous because they remembered being weak and had clawed their way to strength through sheer determination. They were dangerous because they built communities that spanned star systems but would burn those systems down to protect a single child. They were dangerous because they had nothing to prove and everything to protect. 10 years after the war, Colony 7 had been rebuilt as New Hope. 3 million new colonists called it home, living under the protection of defense platforms that could reduce fleets to debris. The memorial still orbited overhead, a reminder of the price paid and the lessons learned. Children studied the war in schools not as a tale of glory but as a cautionary story about the costs of violence and the importance of strength. Admiral Grant, now retired, stood on the observation deck of New Hope's main station and watched ships come and go. Earth's merchant fleet had grown exponentially, trading with dozens of species on equal terms. The military maintained a strong presence, but the days of desperate defensive posturing were gone. Humanity had proven itself and could now focus on growth instead of survival. "Thinking about the old days?" asked a familiar voice. Grant turned to see Commander Sarah Blake, now Admiral Blake and current fleet commander, approaching with 2 cups of coffee. "Always," Grant admitted, accepting the drink. "Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing. The war, the destruction, all of it." Blake gazed out at the busy shipping lanes. "I ask myself that too. Then I remember what would have happened if we'd accepted the Council's investigation. 47 years of committees while our people's murders went unpunished. How many other colonies would they have hit in that time? How many more millions dead?" "We'll never know," Grant replied. "That's what haunts me. The universe where we chose differently, where maybe diplomacy could have worked, but in this universe we chose to fight. And because we did, Amy and Brightstar grew up in a galaxy where their lives matter, where the strong don't automatically get to prey on the weak, where Earth stands as proof that newcomers can demand respect instead of begging for it." Blake raised her coffee cup in a toast. "To the price we paid and the future we bought." Grant touched her cup to Blake's. "To the future." In the end, that was what the war had been about. Not revenge, though justice had been served. Not conquest, though territory had been gained. The war had been about ensuring humanity had a future among the stars, one where they controlled their own destiny. The Galactic Council had learned too late that Earth's rage, when roused, could shake the very stars. But they had learned, and the galaxy was better for it. Humanity continued to expand, to explore, to reach for the cosmos with the same relentless drive that had carried them from caves to starships. Other species watched with mixture of admiration and caution, knowing that the small pink bipeds had claws hidden beneath their civilized veneer, and that was exactly how humans wanted it. Because the greatest deterrent to aggression isn't overwhelming force or advanced technology. It's the certain knowledge that your target will fight back with everything they have, that victory will cost more than you're willing to pay, and that some species don't know how to quit. The galaxy had learned that lesson in Blood and Fire. Earth's rage had shaken the stars, and the echoes of that fury would reverberate through the cosmos for generations to come, not as a threat, but as a promise. Humanity would defend its own. Always. And anyone who forgot that would learn the same lesson the Zalthor had learned, the hard way. The stars belonged to those brave enough to reach for them and strong enough to hold them. Humanity had proven they were both. The future stretched before them, full of possibility and danger, challenge and wonder. But whatever came, Earth would face it as they always had, together unbowed and ready to fight for every inch of ground they claimed among the infinite dark. The galaxy had been warned, humanity had arrived, and they were here to stay.